Okay, I'm back. I'm going to have to do some editing because I said names and I shouldn't have said some names. So, anyway, his parents moved out to Texas and moved into a little house. And I was staying with them some because I was tired of being by myself in the trailer. And my sister-in-law's husband had come home from his he worked like 30 days gone, and he would be home for a couple of weeks. Anyway, he was home, and we were all, we had a cookout and everything, and my husband was gone at that time. So we were enjoying ourselves and everything, and he, my sister-in-law's husband, got drunk, and he was taking some kind of pills. I don't know what was going on with him. I think he was on drugs, but he had a gun and was messing around with this new gun that he had gotten. And I had laid down with my babies because it was way past their bedtime, and I had laid down with them, and um, they were out on the porch and being loud and everything. So I just tried to tune them out. Well, he was playing with this gun, and he come in the bedroom with it, and it was pointed in my direction, but he was wanting to show me how to use this gun. And I'm like, look, I'm trying to get the babies asleep, just let me, I'll come out there when they go to sleep. And he was like, oh, no, no, because I'm fixing to go to bed, and I just want to show you how to use this in case I'm gone and y'all need a gun and everything. But he kept just swinging this gun around like it was a toy, and it terrified me to death. So that was the second incident with this man that, I really didn't like him to start with. And, everything would be fine when he was gone. When he was at work, we all, did fine and got along and everything. But when he was there, he was not a good person. So when my husband came home, I told him that I had had enough. I said, I'm going to go back to my hometown, and he could either come with me or stay there. I didn't care. That I was tired of this. I was going home, and I would figure out a way to make it. So anyway, he quit his job, and we moved back home. And his we moved back to my parents, which was move number 23. And anyway, we moved to my parents, and he was staying down at his aunt and uncle's, and I was staying there with my parents. And I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I didn't, you know, it was too much chaos and unstableness and everything. And so his aunt and grandmother found or told us to find an apartment, and they would help us get set up in it, and buy some furniture and things. So I thought, well, if they're willing to do this, and he really, wanted to us to be together, and I didn't want him to be away from the kids. He was a wonderful dad. Um, he was so good with the kids, but he was just not responsible. And so anyway, we um, got an apartment, and he got a job, and we he actually worked two jobs, and we were doing fairly good. Um, we I can't remember. what happened to the car we had. I think our parents ended up taking it because we couldn't pay the payments. Something happened with the car situation, but we ended up with a different car, and I think he bought it from somebody he was working with. So we were doing really good, and like I said, he was working two jobs, and he wanted. We started going to church, and he wanted something a little nicer. Um, the church we were going to, um, everybody around us was making it fine. Nobody was living like us. We were the only ones, that was struggling like we were. So anyway, we found a better apartment, and so we moved in it. That was move number, I want to say 25. Okay, move number 25. Um, he wanted to go back to school. He wanted to go in the ministry full time, and he felt like the only reason we're not making it is because he's not doing what God wanted him to do. So we decided to move back to the Christian college that he had attended when he was um, 18 years old, before we got married. So we contacted our friends that we had lived with before, and everything was fine. And she was all for him going to college and going full time in the ministry. So we went and moved in with them, which didn't go over very well with my parents. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. All the wishy-washy ups and downs was driving them nuts. And probably we were an embarrassment to them. I wouldn't doubt it. So anyway, we moved in with them, and uh, it took us a little while to get situated. I finally started working, and she was keeping the kids. And well, I'm sorry, I missed a move. Uh, we were there for a little bit. He got a job, and we moved into a trailer. We moved into a trailer, and we were living there, and I got pregnant again. Um, and I remember the very day that I conceived. They had gone to a fall festival with their church. They wanted us to go, but we didn't know anybody, so we said, no, we're not gonna go, and everything. So anyway, the kids were napping, and he talked me into, you know, this and that, and anyway, I conceived that day. And when we moved into our trailer, I knew I was pregnant because I was so sick and I was hurting so bad. My bones, my body, anyway, headache, everything. I was just hurting. I felt like I had the flu. So I went to the doctor and found out that I was pregnant. So again, I dreaded telling anybody. I really did. I didn't want to tell anybody. So he enrolled in school and was working at night, going to school in the morning, and he would come home in the afternoons. So I was okay with that for a little while, and I was just real sick during this pregnancy. It was really hard on me. The people that we were renting from, when they seen that I was pregnant, they told us we had to move because the trailer was not big enough for a family of 5. So we found an apartment based on your income, and we moved in there, and you know, um, we lived there for a while. And I say a while, it wasn't like 5 years. It was just, in our situation, a while was probably a year. So we moved in there, and we were going to church with our friends at their church. And we, um, Easter came, and I didn't have a dress. I didn't have money to buy a dress for Easter. So a lady in the church bought me an Easter dress, and it was so sweet of her to do that. And I appreciated it so much. She bought me a dress, and his grandparents, his grandmother bought the boys little suits. They were so cute in them. And, I made friends, and everything was going fairly well. Um, when my when the baby came, it was a girl. We were absolutely thrilled to death to have a girl. He always wanted a girl. He loved little girls. And not in a sick way, but just he loved little girls. And so we had our complete family. I had my tubes tied so I wouldn't have any more children. And, I had 3 little ones at home now. And he worked midnights, and he had to let school go for the time being because, our family had grown, and he needed to work as much as possible. So anyway, we lived there in that little apartment, and I don't know how it happened, um, but I'm like, I need I need extra money, so I started keeping this little boy. He was the same age as our baby, and she worked for the Chamber of Commerce, and she would bring him over, and I would babysit him all day, and I made gas money, grocery money. So it worked out. It worked out good for a while. Well, we had an opportunity to buy a mobile home. Our credit started getting better. We were in a different state. I don't know how we were able to get credit, but we were. And so we were able to finance a 2-bedroom mobile home. It wasn't big enough for us, but with the kids being as little as they were, they all 3 shared a room. And we had the smallest room because they needed more room than us. So anyway, we lived in a trailer that we're buying. And, I felt like we were finally normal. We were finally like everybody else, buying something. So anyway, we had the trailer, and our youngest son was in kindergarten, and one day he came home and had bought a VCR. Um, it was when they first come out with them, and they were very expensive. Um, I can't remember how much they were then, but by the time we got it paid for, it was like $1,000 for this VCR that now you can get them for $100. Well, they don't even have them anymore. You can, I don't know. But anyway, he went in debt for a VCR. And I really didn't like it very much, but I enjoyed being able to rent movies. And so the first movie we ever rented was Karate Kid. And so we had fun with that. That was some entertainment that we enjoyed, and the boys were old enough to enjoy it. And so his credit was good enough to do that. He wanted to get a different car. So we was already buying a car from a person in our church, and he had a car dealership, and it was used cars, but we already had a little car, and I loved it. It was a nice car. He one day he decided he wanted to drive to a bigger town. We lived in a small town, and he wanted to drive up there and test drive some cars. So we went and test drove some brand new cars. And I'm thinking the whole time, we cannot afford to buy a new car. And even though I would have loved to have had a new car, it was really making me nervous. So he said, well, I'm just going to see if they would finance us a new car. So he picked out one that we both liked. We drove it, and it was a nice little car, and it wasn't really a family car. It was big enough to have three little kids in the back seat. So anyway, we ended up getting a brand new car, Pontiac Sunbird, red. It was nice. It was a nice little car. So we got that, and we bought a new refrigerator. Well, he got us in a lot of debt, and we were feeling the pain, feeling the crunch. So we started getting behind. He was having to work two jobs, and again, I mean, he had already been working two jobs before, but it was really he had to step it up and work two jobs. And I was babysitting. I had two other little boys that I was babysitting, and so the day that the space shuttle, the Challenger, the day that it blew up, I was cleaning a lady's house, and five I had five kids, little kids, on the couch watching Mr. Rogers while I'm trying to clean this person's home. Uh, I believe it was spring break. I can't remember, but they were out of school that day for some reason. And I had my kids plus two more little boys. I had them all lined up on the couch watching TV while I'm cleaning. And all of a sudden, the news broke and everything, and it just made me sick, and the kids were getting antsy, so I had to leave. I couldn't finish cleaning the house. But that's what I did. I cleaned houses in between watching kids and everything just so we could have money and to pay our bills. I had nothing to do with him going in debt like that. Um, I didn't make the decision to get the new car. I didn't make the decision to buy the VCR or the refrigerator. We had a refrigerator in our trailer when we bought it. So anyway, um, we were in such bad debt that we had to sell our trailer. Well, at the time, my brother, he was getting married, and he bought it, and we moved back in with our friends again, and she kept the kids for me while I worked. Well, her way of disciplining and his way of disciplining were totally different. I didn't have a problem with her disciplining our kids. If they needed it, then they should be disciplined. Our middle son was very rough and tough, and um, he played rough. And one of them got in trouble, and she punished him, and he didn't like the way she punished him, and we got into this big squabble. So we moved we moved back to our hometown. And I don't know, it was his sister was back in the hometown too, and she was married to a different person, and he had a business, and he helped my husband uh, go to work for his company, and he taught him a bunch of stuff and everything. So anyway, it worked out. We moved back. Um, she owned a home, and we moved into a house that she had, and I started babysitting, and he was working, and I kept probably 4 children. And so 4 plus mine was a good many kids for me to watch. So anyway, um, I did that. And one time, I had the children down for a nap. I had a schedule, and I would fix them lunch and lay them down for their naps, and then I would clean the kitchen up. Well, while I was cleaning the kitchen up, I heard one of them screaming, and I ran in there, and one child had gotten in the bed with that child and bit the child on the face, and just, oh, it was horrible. I thought if he had bit any harder, he would have took a chunk of meat out of this child's face. That scared me so bad. I was not licensed. I didn't have insurance. So I quit keeping kids. I said, that's it. I'm never keeping another child. I called all the parents, told them to come and get their kids that day. Uh, they came home from work, and I really was scared I was going to be arrested. I was scared I was going to be sued. And so that was the end of that. I didn't keep any kids anymore after that. So anyway, we lived in that house for a while, and then she decided that she needed to sell the house. So they were going to open another business up in another little small town, and wanted my husband to run that business. So they moved us to a really small town, and helped us rent a house. This is so funny. We got moved in, and we the town is so small that it had one grocery store, and I'm used to grocery stores staying open till 9 o'clock at that time. That we didn't have any Walmarts back then, but I thought I had plenty of time. So we got moved in, and I needed to run to the grocery store to get milk and eggs and different things like that, and um, something for dinner that night. So I got to the store, and they were fixing to lock the doors. And it was, I think, 6 o'clock or something. And so I panicked, and I said, please, you've got to let me in. We had nothing at our house. We didn't have a, hardly anything to drink out of. We didn't have any glasses. We didn't have any, uh, you know, anything. So the man said, okay, I'll let you. They didn't even have like a fast food place. All they had was this old timey restaurant. So I got a few things really quick and went back to this house, and we had our dinner, and we went to bed. that night we kept hearing noises, and it scared me, but I'm a woman. My husband got terrified. The house was out in the middle of nowhere, the big cornfield in front of us, so it was way off the street. It was an older home, but it was a nice home, and the rent was extremely cheap. Well, he got so scared, and he told me that night that if we made it through the night, he said he was moving out of that house and he would be packed up in the morning and we were leaving. So I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Stay one night in a house. You're not going to give it another chance. And he said, absolutely not. He is not staying another night in that house. I sure wasn't going to stay there by myself. So the next day, his sister, we got in touch with her. The next day, we found another place, and we moved into it, and it was slap dab in the middle of town. And it actually it was right next door to the jail. So we stayed there, and his sister decided to have her ex-husband come into the business and um, be a partner in this business. Well, my husband did not like her ex-husband at all. From the Texas mess that went on when we were out there, he was a drug addict and he was an alcoholic and he was nothing but trouble. So we're living in this house now downtown in the middle of this little town. And I really liked the house. I could walk to town. I could walk to the library. I could walk to the courthouse. It had the little town courthouse, town square. I could walk to the grocery store. My son, he could walk to school, and it was just perfect. And I got a job and a daycare there. And that's where my middle son and my little girl was going. I could work there, make a little money, and they could go to school for a little or nothing. And so, anyway, it was, the perfect scenario. Well, my husband got upset and said he was not going to work for them in that situation. So, I need to break loose. It's almost 30 minutes since I've been talking. So I'm going to break loose and I'm going to change my scenery and move to a different area. See you in a minute.